as we're shooting this, this is the day after we commemorated, I don't want to say celebrated, but we commemorated the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death. And it is an interesting time. For one thing, I was telling Jeannie, my wife, the other day as we were sitting on our back porch kind of talking, I said, I feel like I have just awakened, as if I have been kind of sleepwalking for 9 or 10 months, and I didn't realize it. If you'd asked me about symptoms, it would be fatigue. I got tired really easy. I couldn't engage. I couldn't sustain a thought. I would open the book and stare at the page for the same page for 15 or 20 minutes. I would get my pen and start to write and never write. And it finally hit me, Mike, what you've been doing for these last several months is you have been grieving. This is the way your body has been telling you something major has happened, and you need to stop and pay attention to it. Now, if you had asked me, are you doing a good job grieving, I would say, well, yeah, I think I am. I mean, there's something about when you lose a parent that you're a 9-year-old little boy. When your dad gets sick and dies, when your mom dies, you're just 9 years old inside, and you're scared. You lose that whole sense of home, like there's no place in the world for you now. There's nobody who loves you no matter what. There's nobody who believes in you no matter what. You lose all of that aspect of your childhood. And the thing is, I'm 62 years old. You would think, well, Mike, you've already been past that. No, not really. Let me tell you the other thing I figured out. When you lose your second parent, you grieve for both of them. You just don't grieve. I haven't been just grieving my mom's loss. I've been grieving the loss of my mom and dad. Now, here's what I figured out. When Dad died, I was sad and I grieved the immediate loss. And 2 or 3 days of the funeral, taking care of all the details you have to take care of in a funeral, taking care of family and that kind of stuff. But almost immediately, my attention had to turn to taking care of Mom. And while Mom continued to grieve, I had to stop my grief and start taking care of Mom. And we've talked on other occasions about some of the real life decisions that I was having to make to take care of her really fast. But whatever grief I had about losing Dad was kind of hidden so I could take care of Mom. And then when Mom died, what happened was it gave me permission, my mind and my body permission to go back and grieve Dad and grieve Mom. So the grief was in some ways double of what you would expect. The other thing that kind of caught me by surprise is when you're dealing with something like Alzheimer's, you lose your patient, in this case my mom, you lose them a little bit every day. And so you grieve for 4 years. And you go in one day and she can't remember the story that you talked about the day before. You go in the next day and she can't remember something else, or she can't do something else. So little bit by little bit, you lose them over the course of this journey. And so when death finally comes, you start thinking, well, I have cried for 4 years. I don't think I'll cry anymore. Wrong. There's a depth to that grief that your mind never gave your body permission to experience because it literally would have shut you down. See, what happens is your mind tells your body, we have a bunch of stuff we need to deal with. And your body goes, not now. We have to take care of this. We got to take care of getting Mom to the doctor. We got to take care of getting Mom to a safe place where she can live. We got to make sure her finances are in order. Not now. We'll deal with that later. And your mind says, okay, and it builds a dam. Now, this dam takes a lot of mental energy to run. And so things like finding your car keys or remembering where your car is parked, those kind of simple things, your mind just can't handle anymore. But what it's doing is protecting you from being swamped in all of this grief. So what happens is you'll go through your season, you'll go through taking care of the things you need to take care of. And finally, your mind will say to your body, can we deal with some of this grief? And your body will look around and go, yeah, we're safe. We can deal with it. And it'll open it down. And it will open up just enough for you to handle that day. It won't give everything. It'll just handle for what it should give you what you need to handle that day. And you will tank. You won't know why. You will have a bad day. You'll cry for over everything and for no reason at all. And you will open and close this dam until you have dealt with all you need to deal with. So part of my grief was dealt with writing the book, Coffee with Mom. One of the hardest things about writing the book was Mom died in the middle of the writing. So I had to go back and change the book from present tense to past tense. And every time you changed a verb to past tense, it was another moment of grief. So you deal with all of that, and you come to a place where now you're 1 year after her death. And you look at yourself and you look in the mirror and you write in your journal and you say, I would have thought it would have killed me. And it didn't. Now what? Now what does it mean to live as her son and the lessons that I have from her that I now need to bring to the future? What does it now mean to me to be the oldest male of our family? To be the keeper of the stories. My dad was the keeper of the stories. Well, Dad's gone. So I've inherited all of his stories, and these are the stories I have to be sure get into Chris and Craig's life. The stories that I heard from my dad that changed my life. Like, my dad was in the Air Force, and he was digging a ditch on the golf course for the officers. He was an enlisted man, airman first class. And a sergeant pulled up, poked him in the back and said, boy, can you drive a truck? My daddy said he knew two things. One, if anybody else had learned to drive a truck, he could learn to drive a truck. And two, it had to be easier than digging that ditch. So my dad said, yes, sir, I can drive a truck. And then my dad said, by the end of the day, I was a pretty good truck driver. So the running joke in our family is whenever you started complaining about how hard your life was, my dad would look at you and say, well, it's probably easier than digging a ditch. I need to make sure my boys know that. I need to make sure my grandchildren know that. I need to make sure my friends hear that. So what does it mean to be now the keeper of the stories, the keeper of the family, and all that has brought us to where we are that will now encourage the generation to go on further? The grief has been longer than I thought it would be. It has been deeper than I thought it would be. But the other thing I have found out is that your grief is as deep as your love is high. And my mom was a piece of work. But my mom and I had a very, very deep and rich and special relationship. And a lot of who I am, I got from her. So most of the time when I remember her, I smile. Most of the time when I remember her, I laugh out loud. And there are times when the laughter quickly turns to tears, because I would just about give anything to have one more cup of coffee with her. I'm Mike Glenn. I'm the senior pastor of Brentwood Baptist Church. And if you like what we're doing with this YouTube channel, hit subscribe or especially hit like, and we'll see you next time.